I know it's been a while since my last upload, but yeah, I've been pretty damn busy with school starting back up and all that, and I've found it pretty hard to make time to actually start to make videos. But I'm gonna try and get some out. I've got quite a few lined up. I just need to make them. So in this video, I'm gonna go over just my thoughts generally on the chapter. This is probably the most uneventful chapter we've had in a while. There really isn't much to go over. There's no real balance changes, no map, not even a survivor this time around. So I'll just briefly go over it. Before I get into the killer and stuff like that, I'll just go over some other things I noticed. Skill-based matchmaking is on. Survivor seems to be a lot easier. I'm getting somewhat decent teammates somewhat consistently. But as killer, it's mostly just what you expect with skill-based matchmaking, which is extremely difficult games over and over. Other than that, there really isn't much. The lighting on some maps is a bit different, mainly Ormond and Coldwind. They look a bit darker, and I'm not sure if it's just me, but this sort of feels away. What I can see, I'm not sure. If anyone can confirm in the comments, but for me, it looks a bit darker. Shadowborn is bugged, so if any uses Shadowborn, don't bother using it because it doesn't work. Blight's Collision feels a wee bit different. Some things that you would normally slide off, you now collide with, but I'm not really entirely sure. Other than that, there really isn't much to go over other than the killer. So let's talk about Pinhead. I'm going to be completely honest. I haven't actually bought Pinhead yet. I'm actually sort of holding off on buying him for a few reasons. One, he's actually bugged at the minute. I heard a lot of people, you DC when you play him sometimes. So I don't really want to buy him until then. Also, it's spoiler alert. He's pretty weak in my opinion. And lastly, his power looks super annoying to play on console. Like, one of the hardest things in console for me anyway is when a survivor's directly in front of you and you're like Hillbilly or Blight and you're trying to hit them like in your power. Like, it's super annoying, and I get juked quite a lot when I do that. And that's basically Pinhead's power. When you have that chain portal in front of them and they're juking left and right and shit, like, that shit will be so hard to hit on console. I already know it's gonna be a nightmare. But let me just actually go for like what I think of Pinhead. So yeah, I don't think he's as strong. I don't think he's terribly weak, but I do think he's on the weaker side of killers. Sort of like how I view Nemesis, where he's not like bad, but he's in like the sort of low mid tier. Around Leatherface, Nemesis, Plague, Ghostface, killers like that, around there, where he's not that weak, but if you're against a decent team, you really don't do that well. The problems I think he has is the fact that the chains most of the time sort of get negated in terms of distance. The time you spend sending out that chain and hitting the survivor was completely negated by the survivor, by just breaking the chains. And another thing is how easy it is to counter chain hunts if the survivors know what they're doing. Like, if the survivors know what they're doing, they'll just get somebody to go grab the box. Nearly when it's a chain hunt, they'll wait for somebody to get downed, picked up, and then they'll solve the configuration, and then they completely negate the chain hunt. And to be honest, without chain hunts, Pinhead is pretty shit. Like, if you get a team that can just keep stopping your chain hunts over and over, solving the box at the correct times, like, it will really hurt you so bad, and you will get shit on pretty easily. Other than that, I think there isn't much wrong with Pinhead. His power isn't inherently flawed. Killers like Trickster, Trapper, I think their powers are just inherently flawed and will never work. But I think Pinhead has potential. Some changes I'm going to recommend for starters. I think the change durability base should be a bit better. Nothing crazy, but I think they should be a wee bit harder to break. And maybe on the environment, instead of instantly breaking, it sort of works like Death Singer will. It will snap quicker if it goes through the environment instead of instantly snapping. I also think that it should be based on proximity. How fast the tunes break. I think if you send out the portal 15 meters away and then hit a survivor, and the distance between you and the survivor is 20 meters, I think the chain should take a lot longer to break. I mean, like, 2 or 3 times longer, so that he can actually counter hold and W. I think a very strong thing for killers these days is being able to counter hold and W. And at the minute, Pinhead can't do that. But I think if he sends out the chain super far away, I think it should be a lot harder to break. The reason I don't want it to be super hard to break at close range is because I don't want Pinhead to just become a, if you get chained, you get hit sort of scenario where, there's no point in even trying to break the chains because, they take about 5 seconds to get you off, and then you can't even, like, get around the loop or anything. So I think those changes will be alright. and I'm not sure how I would fix the chain hunts, but I know that there should be a way for him to get more chain hunts. I think it's too easy to counter chain hunts at the minute. I think if you just get some decent coordinator survivors, they'll be able to completely stop your chain hunts. You might get like one or two if they sort of mess up, but you really shouldn't get any if the survivors know what they're doing. Like I said, I think this killer has potential. I think he could be strong with a few buffs, but at the minute, I'm pretty sure he's on the weaker side of killers. As for his perks, they don't seem too special. Deadlock is like one of those perks where it's pretty strong, but it's got anti-synergy. Deadlock can kind of screw you over. If you've got Pop, if you've got Ruin, Deadlock, I wouldn't recommend running it with those perks. On its own, it's pretty good, but here's the thing. If you're going to run it on its own, that means you can't run two of the strongest killer regression perks, which is Ruin and Pop. And at that rate, you gotta make a sacrifice. Is Ruin and Pop really worse than Deadlock? If so, then run Deadlock. But to be honest, I think Deadlock is just sort of a perk that you would use in a certain build, but I think this isn't going to make its way into the meta because it's just got the anti-synergy, like I said, with, other regression perks. Plaything, sort of a gimmicky perk, it's not that strong. What's this other one? It's, Scourge Hooks. I believe these are a new type of perk. We're going to be seeing more of these types of Scourge Hooks in the future, sort of like Hex perks. The current one seems okay. It's not going to be huge. It's going to make gens go a wee bit slower, like sort of like a wee mini Thanaphobia. And it's going to give them like a sloppy butcher when they're hooked. I don't know, it seems okay, but it's really not going to do that much for you. You won't notice. It's not going to be like, a make or break perk. But overall, I mean, this chapter seems alright. It's just very boring to me because there's really no changes other than the new killer. There's nothing else, but at least the performance is fine, unlike the Resident Evil.